Blog Talk Radio.
Good afternoon. This is Thomas T. Good afternoon. This is Thomas Parisi for the Occupy RNC radio program. This afternoon I'll be joined later on by Al Suarez, the co-founder of Occupy RNC. Today I wanted to just briefly go over and read the Declaration of Principles that myself and Al Suarez, along with the other members of Occupy RNC, had composed. We wanted to make a clear definition that not only is the Occupy RNC movement, in solidarity with the principles of the Occupy movement, but also it's in solidarity with the principles of the movements like Los Indignados, as well as those of the Arab Spring Uprising in Egypt and our brethren that's in Libya. The main thing that we're looking to do at the Occupy RNC is we have a list of our main objectives. The main thing that we're looking to do in our occupation of the Republican National Convention is to occupy the Republican National Convention from the beginning of July, starting around the time of the 4th of July, and ending it shortly after the Republican Convention ends, which would be in the early part of September. Right now, the main things that we're focusing on for the Republican National Convention, on what we would be protesting and trying to bring into the public eye, is the support of the majority of the Republican politicians in Washington of corporate greed and corporate personhood, and such things as bank bailouts, which the majority of them were pushed along by Republicans. The main thing I want to illustrate first is that Occupy RNC's main goal is the defense of the First Amendment's protection of the First Amendment in the political environment of the Republican National Convention area, the clean zone. The Occupy RNC is very much against the imposition by the Republican Party that basically they gave the city of Tampa $50 million last year to be able to host a convention here, and in doing that they were able to basically purchase, quote unquote, the rights for the last for the 120 days coming up to the Republican National Convention. When I say that they bought the rights, basically what it is that no protester is allowed to come within almost a mile and a half, and that's from the latest of what they're doing to actually expand the clean zone, because since there's so many expected protesters to come, the Secret Service is insisting to the city of Tampa, because it has to come from a local ordinance for them to be able to enforce it, that the city of Tampa enforces the clean zone to actually go in upwards of a mile past where it's at the present moment. So basically, this is how a Republican fascist buy out a city. But Occupy RNC is promoting occupying the public and private lands in the clean zone and beginning to do recognizable change in the political scene of Tampa. And the main goal is the right to protect the freedom of expression, which is being severely infringed upon because of the implementation of the clean zone. And the city ordinance, as we said before, allows the immediate arrest of an individual or groups exercising their freedom of assembly or their freedom of speech rights provided to them under the Constitution. And that the group of Occupy RNC feels that this is a clear and blatant violation of our constitutional rights, that we as Americans hold dear, and we seek, as as a movement, our main objective is to overturn this ordinance to allow other members and other groups of the Occupy that are coming in from all over the nation, in fact all over the world, as well as other groups that are protesting legitimately over the diabolical dictatorship of fascism for the last 12 years in the United States. And we see that clearly as to the circumstance which we find ourselves in at the present moment in the United States. Right now I'm going to be patching in. I just have my comrade coming on the line, Al Suarez. We lost him for a second, but Al, if you come back onto Cyberland, we just saw you, but please pop back in. We're running off of two different workstations at the moment. But getting back to the point at hand when Al calls back, we're all amateurs over here. Believe me, we being outside for several months in the Occupy, I did about 5.5 months, and Al did just about the same, if not more. We started to get a little bit soft in the head. But getting back to the point at hand, I was talking about the clean zone. The other thing that we're looking to do, which is especially important for an Occupy, because our Occupy is not the Occupy like, for example, that we're representing Occupy Tampa or Occupy Miami or Occupy Wall Street or so on and so forth. Our Occupy is kind of like what would be considered the public defender of the Occupies looking to come. We're looking to help those comrades of ours who are looking to occupy to be able to occupy. You know, our main goal is to, of course, protest, but beyond that, we want more people to be able to come here and protest with us. Now, joining me on live is Mr. Al Suarez. Al, can you hear me?
Yeah, there's a rainstorm where I'm at, so I don't know how well you're going to hear me and how long this cell service is going to work.
No, go right ahead. I don't know if you're catching it. We're just talking a little bit about the clean zone. I was just giving him a little bit of the take. I mean, go ahead, Al. What's your thoughts on the clean zone, how it impacts the occupiers?
I wanted to read it over so people would have an idea of why I joined Occupy, because in the last episode I touched a little bit on that.
Yes, go ahead, by all means.
I'm waiting for it to load, because I had it set up on the computer, but because of the rainstorm, it messed up the internet connection, so I have to go back and look for it. But
now, in the interim, I know that you gave a brief rundown of the occupies you've been at. I've been at Tampa and Miami. What occupies have you been able to participate? You know, I'm pretty sure Wall Street, D.C.
Well, rather than mention that last time, it just came up. And before I read this, in its brief, I wanted to give the background on how did I end up giving this. I ended up giving this because I came back to Occupy Tampa from up north, and actually this is written when I first came to Occupy Tampa on January 31st, which you know was the same day as the eviction of Occupy Miami, and I was trying to bring comrades from there over to defend Miami. So here it is. Tampa address. We stand here north, and they may take our tanks. A division and paranoia, which has reached our movement from a corrupt society we strive to change. I write this address individual stack at a GA upon arrival in Tampa or during an emergency meeting to deal with the Miami camp crisis. I need not say the importance of defending that camp. It is beyond question we must send as many comrades as possible to defend her, as she is under threat, which is the duty of all occupiers for each other, in particular in times of needs like this. I came from the northernmost major city of Boston, and we'll go to the southern major city of Miami. Tampa is close, Tamiami. We must unite. From Orlando and other parts of Florida, we must have a united front. We must leave today and protect the Miami camp, even behind some comrades to spread the word, that we need people there. Respect this camp has its own rules, but we must adhere to the universal rules of justice as well. I accept fair ones, but not unfair ones. We must again strive for change for social justice we all seek. Indeed, solidarity forever. I write this address from the train on my way to you. The train of revolution is upon us in this new year. A new conscience is upon us in this last day of January. Like Lincoln, who wrote his brief address, I too am brief, firmly believe, in most cases, those who speak a lot do little. We must be men and women of action and act on our human conscience, collect this community and other occupied communities across the nation and world towards a new era, a new way out of this mess. We must dream the dreams of our forefathers for a more free and equal world where liberty and justice can be for all, as they fought to take off the shackles of British imperialism. Miami needs tents, needs most of all a presence. We must build barricades, take down some, but all these actions are out of a revolution of love. Let us not forget that society is the ideal we strive for in this ongoing struggle for a better future of this country and for all our children. That is why I was one of the 46, December 10th last year, to be arrested at the last stand at Dewey Square in Boston. That is what I said before the police stomped on my comrades and me. I went also to show solidarity to Vermont, Providence, D.C., and New York. Now back in the South, we can work together in the East Coast towards the unity we desire deep down, in spite of all the drama and intimidation imposed by the new order of the government. We must be above that and be nonviolent with discipline. Everyone has their role. My role led me to plead not guilty, not taking a deal when our old camp was opened up back. I went there with other brothers and sisters in spirit. The camp is no longer there, but our legacy is. Our efforts are not in vain. We are the majority. No longer will the elite of 1% control us. We shall prevail.
Well, Carmen, I think that's excellent. Yes, and at least as one of the participants down there on January 30th, 31st, I appreciate that at least some people had a notion to come down to help us, you know. And that's the terrible.
Wanted to come with me. I didn't have enough people to back me to be able to go to get to Miami in time. We only got word like a day before. So I wasn't able to get there in time. I felt very bad that I wasn't able to be there to support you guys. And then I met you later on in Tampa. But I initially came to Orlando, back to Florida, when I went to the camp in Tampa for the first time. Although there was a GA that was supposed to happen and didn't have quorum. So when I got there, nobody was. The next day I took the train to Tampa, and that's when I wrote that, you know. It's just tragic because you have this lack of solidarity in the movement. And that's why we need to make new movements that are part of that.
No, and I completely agree. That the Occupy movement needs to become reinvigorated. The problem is that a lot, I think we discussed it yesterday, a lot of the very affluential and the very intelligent members of the Occupy got disenchanted and disenfranchised in both regards that the mediocrities are now the ones that claim that they're the occupiers. I mean, mediocre people such as, for example, in Miami, Kevin Young, or mediocre people here such as, what is his name, Joel Klein-Peter, or Mike Fernandez, or this Nathan Schwartz. These mediocrities wouldn't make it in a real Occupy because a real Occupy is standing out there against the lions of injustice and taking them on directly every day of the week. You know, the problem with a lot of Occupies now that I see is that there is no vigor. There's no what I refer to pardon the vulgarity, but testicular fortitude. No, they have no balls at all. You know, if this was the 1960s, they would have killed to have the chance that we had. You know, when we had the public occupation.
Well, as you know, there's females that don't have. Well, as you know, there's females that don't have balls that are also very brave that are part of our movement.
No, exactly. I was only talking about chauvinistic males. But, yes, there are many, you know, fine, upstanding young ladies that are in the Occupy movement. I'm just speaking of guys that actually are more girly than girls, you know. But the main thing is...
Before we show started.
Mm-hmm.
And I warned you about it, and I'm forced to ask you it because, you know, I don't like your cover picture on your Facebook right now, flaunting that money. What is that about?
Oh. For all those that don't know in listening land, I have decided to display my hyper-capitalistic tendencies that Mrs. Suarez is calling me out on the air. I believe that what we should do is we should focus on the program. But I think it's a very good sociological experiment to see how people...
Aren't we fighting state capitalism by protesting the RNC? Isn't that part of that?
But that's money from the RNC. I became a delegate for the Republican Party. I didn't want to tell anyone.
Well, I thought you were affiliated with the Democrats.
Al, I'm joking with you.
All right, I don't know, man, because
yeah, I want to see if
we talked about socialism, right? Because you understand that my form of socialism is a humanist form of socialism, which doesn't even contradict Christ, because look what Jesus did. You know, he kicked the moneylenders out of the temple. He was against capitalism in his time.
Yes. This is where we'll break into the nitty-gritty of it. Now, you have your socialist tendencies, and I have my Party pro-human rights tendencies. It was founded by Andrei Sahavov, who was the Russian that helped bring an end to communism in the Soviet Union. But, you see, even with controversial or conflicting political views, people can work together towards a goal. For example, one should say like this. that the main thing is like, as we've stated before, we have to stay on point, on exactly what we're talking about. As we've stated before, we're looking to work with different groups. You and I are perfect
I wasn't clear on
examples.
what the talking points were for today. All I knew is that it was a second episode for Occupy RNC.
Mm-hmm. This is regarding the Occupy RNC. So, I mean, one should say, what are our goals or objective is what we're talking about.
Well, our immediate goals are to make our presence known in August in Tampa, because there's going to be a lot of media attention there, people from all over. So it is an opportunity that way. But besides the opportunistic part of it, I mean, long-term goals, common goals, we're trying to reach justice here. And political and economic justice. And the system of capitalism as we know it, I mean, there's nothing fair about it. And, I understand that there's satire, flaunting money here or there. But it gets to a point where it's like people are going to be offended by that, especially poor people. And, I'm all about the poor people.
Well, yeah. Well, let's leave behind that, because that's a dull issue. The main thing that we're focused on is, I mean, if I brought out if we bring out some of these folks that are coming down, I should say it like this. I've invested, at least in my own effort, like a lot of other people, so much time and effort that we have to start focusing on not trying to go after each other, but going after the system. See, one thing that has people's minds wrapped up is they seem to take criticism in a very, very highly sensitive state, or they get offended easy. I mean, for example, I'm a Roman Catholic, and I have a lot of people that, especially in the Occupy, it's very highly intolerable, and I'm are quietly very orthodox. But I see in the Occupy movement, they're very intolerable for
atheism at this point in the movement. I mean, the Occupy movement, the imposition of atheism. I think any imposition of political philosophy is wrong. If you want to convert or convince somebody to be part of your political philosophy, don't do it by force. Don't do it by imposition.
Yeah. Well, that's the main thing, is that you cannot go try to impose even political views. See, here's the thing. One should say it in a different way, is that we have to respect everybody's individuality, which unfortunately in the Occupy is coming about where they're not respecting people's individuality, you see? I mean, people are flamboyant, people are maniacal, people have their different temperaments, but we have to understand which way they float. That's to say in a different way, is that there is a complete lack of understanding in the Occupy movement now for individuality. If you're not part of the hive, the collective, it's becoming where if you're not in the cliques, you're basically out. And we're seeing that more and more, that comrades of mine are being discriminated now in Miami.
I didn't hear the last part. We were talking about safe spaces, how they kick people out?
Safe spaces is a way to use it, but the other way, just besides kicking them out, is using violence against them, too. I mean, that's in a more friendly...
We're supposed to be nonviolent.
Yeah. I mean, what it is hypocrisy. It's hypocrites, And the thing is that if we wanted to do a violent movement, believe me, it would be much easier to do a violent movement that was violent. And it would only take 1 or 2 days for that movement to capitulate, but that movement would have had a bigger impact than Occupy would have had altogether, because the movement would have been serious. If people want an example of what a violent movement is as opposed to Occupy, look at the Black Panthers and the 1968, 1967 situations in Chicago.
They started out nonviolent, but they were very much in favor of self-defense, and they did do some offensive things, militarily, and they had some infiltrators, and that's why most of them ended up killed or jailed.
Yeah, but one has to remember, this is at the same time that those protesters had water cannons being shot at them, water cannons at 3,000 PSI. They had German Shepherds being sicked on. I have a friend of mine who's in...
People.
I have a friend of mine who marched with MLK. He was with me in Miami, and he was at the Martin Luther King Parade March, and you can notice a large lump on his head, and that's when he got hit in the late 1967, after Martin Luther King had passed away. When he was at a march, he got hit with a water cannon in the head, which left him like a gigantic lump. I heard a little bit of it. He passed. It passed away
in early '68, so it must have been around then that the guy got hurt.
Yeah, it was somewhere in 1967 where he got hit in the head with a cannon. But I'm like Churchill. I like to get my dates off like Churchill does. But one should say, that legitimately, occupiers have no fucking clue, pardon the French, of what a real police state repression is like. But it's coming. Like, for example, what was in Chicago was child's play as to what they had planned for like the Republican National Convention. Because remember, NATO already had troops there, and that was kind of like the testing grounds of what they're going to try to do here at the Republican National Convention. I mean, if people don't believe that they're going to come to Tampa and act like ass clowns and just run up to the convention and like start doing like man pig stuff with like some fools like to do, like donut for a cop, fishing for cops. I mean, literally the cops are just going to like throw you in a duffel bag, take you to behind a barn, and then beat the living shit out of you and throw you back on the street, or throw you in federal prison.
The fascistic forces are still there, but don't go full level. You have to maintain that illusion.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the thing is this, is that you have to remember that, you and I were down there when they did it, but Tampa has more military personnel, and I'm talking about everywhere from, I've seen as high as like a brigadier general in downtown Tampa. They didn't have this 7 months ago, and they don't have these type of people down there, like a brigadier general is making, in upwards of like, $70,000 to $100,000 a year, depending on the specialty. These are usually like Air Force or Marine Corps. But it's illegal.
Saw that illegal military exercise.
Yeah,
okay,
but
people saw that.
Yeah, and the sad thing is that people were applauding it. That was what the sad part about it was, is that they were applauding their freedom being taken from them. Allie, one should say it's kind of like going to Disney World, like the way we saw it. It was kind of like they thought they were going to Disney World and watching a show, but the show was them taking their democracy from them, their rights from them, and putting in a police state.
Is this a 30-minute show or a 45-minute show?
No, this is a 30-minute show.
Okay, because I believe it has a possible extension of 45, in case we do have a caller. I hope we do open it up to callers. Do you have anybody in particular expecting to call in?
No. We at least at this time we haven't gotten any. I think the way we have the station set up only holds 2 at the moment. But hopefully in the next week we're going to be able to hold 100, because that's what the capacity is for the different style on using this medium. But now, what things can you illustrate to the average viewer who is in naivete? What the best things are? For example, what's the best things that we can protest when we do come to make an impact when they come to Tampa for the RNC?
What's the question again?
One should say, what are the main goals and objectives when people come down to try to protest at the Republican National Convention?
Well, some of the people are inevitably going to be just people trying to get attention. Really.
I kind of have you fading in and out, but Al, you're still there, right? Let's see. I can see you're still there. Well, he was, I'll kind of add on until Al pops back in the picture, but one thing that is that coming down and trying to make a real, true impact on protesting the Republican National Convention is that the Republicans are the main influence behind, not just the Republican. Oh, there you are. Okay. You're fading in and out. Al, you're still there, right? Okay, I'm going to continue on until Al's in a bad storm. He's up north. Hold on. He's going to call back in a minute. Al, I just saw you went off, but you'll be back in a minute. The main thing is that what has happened over the last 12 years? We've been involved in 2 major wars. Yeah, that's news to everybody. But those 2 major wars, people don't realize how many millions upon millions of dollars are used every single day for basic logistics support to support the armament industry of the United States. What the young people here refer to as the military-industrial complex is more properly termed as the armament industry. What does that mean? Well, for example, when you build an Abrams main battle tank, okay, Abrams main battle tank, which is an MBT, costs in upwards of, let's just say, $40 million for conservative sake. Okay. Then you have to man that main battle tank with five military personnel. Proper term for it. So then you have $100,000 a year going into being able to man this main battle tank. And then after manning the main battle tank, you have to provide fuel. You also have to have weaponry. When it comes down to it, every day we're paying just to be able to wage war at a moment's notice because the nonsensical idiots that are warmongers in this country think it's better for us to try to put on the same stupidity as the Soviets of trying to put on a big, strong front when the Soviets capitulated because of their involvement in Afghanistan. How much better will we fare with our stupidity and our corruption in both our political and private industry? But right now I'll leave that point because Al is back in the line. Al, can you hear me?
Yeah, what was the last thing you heard me say?
You had stopped out basically about 35 seconds. So repeat like what you were going to say about the importance of...
The last thing that I had, that you heard before we got disconnected.
It was basically you were saying that you were talking in reference to nonsensical protesting. It was the beginning of what you were saying.
That protest for nonsense, there's people like you and I that have a message, and the message is justice and how to acquire that justice for a more just and humane system, for a more equal system, and that was what the original Occupy was about, was equality. But now you have one group dominating another, which has caused divide in the movement and outside the movement as well. We have to try to work towards that equality.
Yeah, and I mean, there's the thing is like the whole idea of us doing like this Occupy RNC, because like I said, there's only about 5 to 10 of us that are in this. We're the vanguard. We're establishing the roots and basis for everybody to come. Even people we don't like, even a shithead like Kevin Young, a douchebag from Miami, I believe should be able to come here and protest because he has a human right to go against the system that has oppressed him, just like anybody would, just like my crazy ass should. But the thing is that all bias aside and all humor is that we are here. You and I are here to try to make that equality. It's not just us. We're looking for other people who are down with doing the same thing. And that's one thing I really want to illustrate is that we have to come together again as I don't know how you feel, and I'm pretty sure you feel the same. We have to come together just like we've been saying as a movement together. Camaraderie. That's a basic word. Camaraderie at its best is what wins a revolution. Nothing less than that, because it's putting the good of your neighbor and your comrade before your own good. It's for the common good. And that's the problem that a lot of occupiers, I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, but for me, that's why a lot of the occupiers have just boggled out, is a lack of basic camaraderie.
Well, there's a lack of solidarity and camaraderie in general. I mean, if people really knew what brotherhood or camaraderie is, they wouldn't betray people like that over the minorest things, over jealousy, over feeling intimidated, and then they gang up on people and they stick a mob on them and, safe spaces or whatever. I mean, that's not the way to go about forming a movement, especially one that's new and that's trying to have a good image in the public. And when these stories get out, there is a cover-up usually in alternative media because they don't want to make Occupy look bad. But if it's a transparent movement, then admits the faults of the movement and try to correct them. Don't deny them or try to cover them up. I mean, of course, the mainstream media could be covering this. If the mainstream media, the so-called mainstream media, is not trying to Occupy, why don't they cover the civil war that's been going on in Occupy, especially among the homeless occupiers and the non-homeless occupiers, And this is going off on a tangent, though, because we are focused on Occupy RNC, but we also want to make clear that we are not officially part of Occupy Tampa. We're our own group, although we're starting to happen to be former occupiers, but we're starting our own thing.
Yeah, I mean, and the main reason why, we don't have to go into the sordid details, is that Occupy Tampa is not a real Occupy movement. It's just little children playing around. Literally, that's not to offend younger people. I mean, it literally is 1%ers of an Occupy movement making deals with a strip club Mongol for the sake of putting themselves ahead of the game and having some place to hang out and get high and stupid all day. Now look, I smoke pot. Everybody in the world knows I smoke pot, and I drink. Catch me if you can, but it has nothing to do with my activism. But the problem is that priorities, that's where the problem lies with something like Occupy Tampa. And, as so far as I go, Occupy Lakeland, Occupy St. Pete, and Occupy the rest of these jackasses, because all the occupies I've met in the northern part of Florida pale in comparison to a real Occupy like we had in Miami and a real Occupy like my friends have in Madrid, Los Indignados, they're over there. I mean, reality is that if you're a real occupier, you occupy.
Explain to the listeners what the word indignado means, in case they don't know.
Indignado means, the exact translation from Spanish is indignant or outraged. And guess what, little children of Occupy? We were there first, bitches, and Occupy is a copy of Los Indignados. You know it and I know it because we speak Spanish. But the unfortunate part is the whole outrage movement came about just like this.
What country does it originate from, and when did it start?
Spain, and it started in May of last year. I believe the actual date, wasn't it like May 10th? Yeah, it was May of last year, and Occupy started in September. But now it will not let me extend. I have 15 seconds. Al, throw out the last word, brother.
Oh, I didn't realize we had such a few time. I there might be a extension, but my last words,
give us a closing phrase.
Episode that we can get some callers, and don't feel intimidated by us. Come and debate us or question us on these topics.
Or even add your consensus or your contributions into what we're doing. But we appreciate everybody having joined us for the program, and Godspeed and Viva la Revolución.
Viva, que viva.
Que viva. Thank you very much, Al. We appreciate you coming on. Once again, we're Occupy RNC. Find us on Facebook, Occupy RNC, or on Twitter, Occupy.RNC. And thank you once again. And remember, Occupy RNC, because we're screwing it for them. All right, Al, you have a great day, my brother. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll catch you next time on the program.